Well, my name is Bern Kozuki, and I'm a member of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. So my job tonight is twofold. I need to give you a little bit of an update as to what's happening in Chelmsford, and then I'm going to introduce Paul, who's our main speaker for tonight. So I just have a few slides here. There. So this is a synopsis of the climate action report that the Clean Energy Committee made to the Select Board back in October. So the committee's been in existence for about 1.5 years, and at our 1-year date, we had a draft of this. This is similar to a lot of the climate action reports of a lot of towns that have net zero goals, net zero by 2050 goals. You see 4 different areas: clean energy, building emissions, transportation emissions, and zoning on our report. So tonight we're going to be addressing really the building emissions part of it with the building codes. So let me get the next slide here. Oops. There we go. So the specialized code was generated by the Department of Energy Resources. That's the organization in Massachusetts that generates codes. Specifically last year to address encourage electrification of buildings, of new construction buildings. It was different than the stretch code that some of you may know about. In order to adopt it, the towns need to actually vote them in for a town meeting. So I went too far here. It's frozen up on me. Yeah. The whole thing is What's that?
Yes, but that's not.
Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, so the specialized code was to encourage electrification of new construction buildings. And it's very important to do that because building emissions are one of the highest sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the state, and it's the highest in Chelmsford. So we have a net zero by 2050 goal that was passed by town meeting 2 years ago. And so the Clean Energy Committee is working to come up with strategies to address that goal. Now, the specialized code applies to new construction only. And so the owner may choose 3 different building pathways. Mixed fuel pathway. It does allow for the use of gas, oil, or propane, or the owner may choose all electric or zero energy. For the all electric pathway, mostly there's no changes from the current stretch code, except for large residential buildings. There's a little up step in energy efficiency required. For the mixed fuel pathway, though, if you choose, for example, to use gas in your house, in your new house, you would have to add solar generation. You have to generate solar electricity on site. And the house has to be wired for future electric appliances, even though you're using a gas stove, a gas hot water heater, and a gas electric dryer, for example, and a gas furnace. Wiring has to be brought to those sites so that in the future, when you swap over to electricity, you or some future owner of the house will have the power right there. Okay, let's see. Huh. It's frozen up again. Beg your pardon? Okay, so just skip the slide.
On that last slide, it said, you didn't have to have solar stuff if you were in a shaded area.
So if there's an exception for shaded areas for houses less than 4,000 square feet. For greater than 4,000 square feet, I think, and Paul's going to correct me on this when he gets up. I think that you have to try to collect as much energy as you can if you're partly shaded. Okay. So this is just a says what the last slide says, that the green areas are what I just talked about. The specialized code causes the green areas on the slide. And so this is a big picture slide. The blue areas are the stretch code that you probably already have if you're a green community. Okay, so, and finally, this is my last slide. The reason, coming back to the reasons for it, building emissions are a principal contributor to total emissions. And it's an important step to address building emissions, to adopt the specialized code. And that's why Chelmsford is doing it. And I hope that people from other towns are considering this also. So with that, I'm going to get out of here and let Paul, I'm going to introduce Paul. So our speaker tonight has more than 45 years experience, Paul Raymer, in the energy conservation field, and is presently a subcommittee chair for heating, cooling, ventilation at the National Renewable Energy Laboratories standard work specifications. He's held numerous positions within the building performance sector institute and is a certified HERS rater. And you'll learn all about HERS ratings, I think, when Paul talks. He's also developed and taught courses for a number of colleges, professional societies, and states, state energy organizations, I believe. I have learned that he doesn't like to be called an expert, I don't think, but he really is. And so please welcome Paul, and we'll learn a lot more than we knew when we came in here tonight about energy codes. Paul. Okay, so let me, can you get yourself in here?
Is that okay if screen sharing is stopped?
Oh, screen sharing turned off.
Yeah,
Be able to.
it's great. I can just talk to myself.
Oh, there, you got it on.
I got that. Not there.
Okay. Let's minimize it. I mean, it's I can't find the
Shrink that.
okay, so where's the
Hold on. Go to share screen. Do you have a presentation?
Yeah.
This one?
So,
okay,
Is this the
thank
one?
you.
Is this the one?
We can see it now.
yeah. How many experts does it take to change a light bulb? Bingo.
We can talk into the microphone, please.
Okay, okay, I'll be good. I have a tendency to want to pace, but. Yeah, I'm Paul Raymer. I work for a company called ICF, which is a big consulting firm. Does stuff all over the world, which is very exciting. I do a lot of work with the Environmental Protection Agency on indoor air quality. Work with HUD on radon issues. Work on harmonizing the European ventilation codes, which is all very exciting. So it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff going on. I've been doing it since the late 70s. I have a degree in creative writing. So, you know, I am not an engineer, so I don't have to prove that things will work because I don't know any better. I'm not smart enough to know.
I think the people online are having trouble hearing
Hello, can you hear me now?
That's a better position.
That's a better position.
Good.
Yep, all is good.
I can hear just when you said,
Okay. I will do my best.
okay.
And I'll stop rambling about things. That's one of my problems is I you know, I go off on all these stories and so you got to be sure you keep me in line. All right, so the stretch code is, as Byrne said, is that, can people see with the people up there or?
Well, I see, yeah. I think it
We can
doesn't,
see
it
it.
doesn't
We-
block the home
We
screen.
can see it.
Doesn't block the home screen.
It doesn't, okay, so you can,
Move it up.
oh, that's perfect. Yeah, that's great. I'll just move it.
But it's not.
There we go. All right, it's out of my way. Okay, so. The stretch code, you're in, where are you all from? Are you all from Chelmsford or? Yep. And so Chelmsford is a green community, right?
Yes, yes,
Right.
it is, yeah.
And so you've been doing stretch code,
Or,
right?
yeah, 2009. Yes,
Don't all speak at once.
yes.
Yes, we're currently doing the stretch code.
It's a green community and it has the stretch coded out by default. since
Okay.
2008.
Okay, what do you think of it? Are you aware of all the changes that happened on January 1st to the stretch code?
Yeah, so you tell us.
Oh, I'm not supposed to tell you all that. You're supposed to know that.
Yeah.
I mean, basically what the steps from the stretch code to the specialized code is really small. There's not a great deal of difference. And so what you would do by moving into the specialized code is just moving ahead a little bit faster. All right, so we have a basically, I think it's we're committed, put it that way.
It is.
It is minimized on my screen
Hmm,
and it's,
how about over here?
Don't worry about that, don't worry about that. It's fine.
yeah, as long as you can see the screen, I can see the screen, we're in good shape. All right, and then I'll show you my vacation in Mexico. Now, so, but we're committed to net zero emissions by 2050. So we got to do it. And one of the easiest ways we can address it, as Bern pointed out, was with new construction. Because when you build a new house, all your options are open to you, right? Existing houses, not so much, but new houses, you can do anything to make it more energy efficient. Boy. This thing is. It's. I can't believe this. You know, sometimes I bring 3 computers to me to these things because I never know which one is going to work.
Just press
That
this.
one. Okay. Okay, so bottom line, why are we here? We're here because we need to do better things for everybody. We need to do this for our grandchildren. And we need to make the world a better place. When one of the HERS raters I was working with told me that, I said, you got to be kidding. I mean, builders really, are they really that concerned about making the world a better place? Or are they more concerned about making money? And I think that there's a really wonderful tide. The fact that you are all here tonight speaks to that purpose, because you don't have to opt into the specialized code. So as Bern pointed out, the specialized code impacts new construction and major additions and major renovations.
Hold on, Paul. I think you have to clarify that statement. So like you split that statement into 2 statements. What impacts new construction and what do you mean by major additions and renovations?
Give me the first part again.
So just clarify, what do you mean by major additions and major renovations?
With that, okay, so new construction is new construction.
Construction is new construction.
Okay,
Clarify
major-
what applies in the major renovations.
can I push that a little bit farther down the,
I would rather you do that right now because this session is being recorded and will be used as material by many. So you need to specify the definition of stuff.
well, I have some slides on it a little bit farther down. If you're willing to go there.
Okay.
I'm not really avoiding your question.
Just because it's
I'd sort of like to do it in sequence, if that's okay.
okay.
Okay, but one of the things that I've found, and this goes to your question, Frederick, is that these things are complicated. Last night I did a session in Rochester and they wanted me to give them the difference in price for a police fire station they were working on per square foot with the stretch code and without the stretch code. I mean, that's sort of like a Yogi Berra question to me. You know, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. It's so, there are so many issues. What kind of bathroom fans are they putting in? You know, what kind of tiles are they using in the kitchen? What kind of insulation are they using in the walls? How are they structuring the walls? There are just so many issues that you can't do that quickly. And building science is complicated. I mean, there are Are you guys builders? You look like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean-
No, no.
But houses are incredibly complicated. I mean, they get a lot of moving parts. My wife and I are doing some renovations on our old inn in Falmouth on the Cape. You know, and you get down into, you know, what kind of color are the grills for the HVAC system? I mean, there are just a dozen, thousand issues in all of those questions. And the stretch code and the opt-in specialized code, it really requires the participation of the raters and the verifiers. So if you're thinking of building a new building, you need to get together with the HERS rater or the passive house verifier right from the get-go. So you get their expertise and you do it right.
What's the difference between a passive house and versus
Okay. The stretch code is primarily using the HERS rating. A HERS rating is the home energy rating system. It's basically put together by an organization called ResNet. And what it does is it takes all of the elements involved with energy that you're putting into the new house, and you build a computer model that compares the new structure to a house built to the 2006 building code. And so if you built that new house exactly the same as the 2006 structure, it would have a score, a HERS score of 100. If you built it so that it didn't need any extra energy, it would have a HERS score of 0. It's sort of like a golf score. The better you make the house, the lower your HERS rating. Okay? And so it's all done in a computer model. And so you can, the beauty of that is you can trade things off. You can trade off an Energy Star refrigerator, you know, to different installation or different windows. So you put all those things together to come up with your HERS score. Now, the passive house verification is based on an organization, a German organization called Passive House Institute. And they decided that they really wanted to get an even more efficient building than we were doing now. And so it does, I have a slide on that too, and I'll show you in a minute. But for the specialized code, you really, and you're doing a commercial building, you're going to need to use a passive house verifier to get that score. Okay, so then just some basic points here. Electric homes generally less expensive to build. If you build an energy, where do we put the vents for HVAC? The heating systems on the outside wall, right? And usually under the windows. So if you have better windows and a better wall, then you don't need to run the ducts out to that outside wall. And so the duct runs can be shorter. The heating system can be more efficient and have less capacity. So, and particularly if you're using mini splits, there's no ducting and there's no leakage in the ducting. There are all kinds of mass save incentives. I mean, Massachusetts has been amazing about giving out money. And then this year we have the federal IRA, that 45L tax credit. I am not going to get into that. It's way beyond me. And then as a benefit to all this, your electrification reduces fossil fuel and you have reduced life cycle costs. All right, so then just basically there are 3 different levels of codes in Massachusetts. You have the base code, there it is. And so you guys are in the stretch code in the middle. And then the specialized code is up at even another layer beyond the stretch code.
Paul, question on this, you say it's 4 communities today. Is that, what was the date of that?
It's actually 6 communities now.
It is now 6 communities?
Yep.
Is that a town meeting they voted themselves in?
Yeah, they sort of got in real early. I don't know exactly when they decided to do that, but they really wanted to lead the pack, and most of them are around Boston.
You know, like,
I do, but not off the top of my head. I'm getting old. I'm sorry?
Brookline,
Yeah, I think it is.
Should be
8.
8, yeah. Brookline, Cambridge, Watertown, Somerville, Lexington, Newton, Lincoln, and Boston. Pending signature last week.
This thing's moving faster than I can stay on top of it.
I just wanted to clarify because the recording, therefore.
That's great.
It's in posterity, therefore. Be annotated, otherwise there's misrepresentation.
All right.
But if you're accepted as a-
So the stretch code on January 1st is here. This is where you guys are now. And so you see those are HERS ratings. And in other words, when you have a HERS score of 52, that means you're 48% or 48% better than that 2006 code, which is the worst house you can build legally. So you need to get down to 52 right now for mixed fuel. And you can go to HERS 55 if you add some solar to it. And if you have an all electric house with some solar, they give you another 3 points. So you can actually only have to get it down to 58. But on July 1st, 2024, you're going to have to get down to HERS 42. And the specialized code, if you opt in now, you will be shooting for that HERS rating of 42.
no incentive for solar.
I'm sorry, say
No incentive for the solar. Stretch, all electric, 45, all electric and solar.
No incentive if you go solar on all electric.
All electric in 23 was, I think he was asking if the 45 is 40 and solar.
Oh, here, no, that's no extra, I don't believe so. That's a good question, though. I'll have to look that up.
What was the request we made?
It's just when. Somebody doesn't say to use the solar.
I think if I understand you correctly,
Yours is the same because it's all electric and but it's no change. So there's no.
He's saying that you're not incentivizing solar like you were back.
you're not getting an extra 3 points here.
Yeah. Well,
So
why
if-
should you? Right.
And you notice this is on the specialized code under 4,000 square feet, and this is over 4,000 square feet. And there's HERS 0. That means you're bringing the house down to, I think it's around 42, a HERS 42, and then you add solar on it to get it all the way down. So the house is generating as much energy as it's using. Pretty cool.
That's 4,000 square feet living area or low living area or.
Condition space.
At occupancy,
At occupancy, What you said?
At occupancy, yes, at first occupancy.
Need to add on later.
Because I can build 2,000, 2,000, 1,000, and I can have another 1,500 basement unfinished, unconditioned at the first occupancy. But right after I move in, I can get the basement finished. There's no conditionality in the house.
I can't answer that.
Okay.
As we go back to the complicated thing. I mean, I am learning about the nuances on this thing every day.
Does your not have a decision sheet that building inspectors have to use?
Oh, good question.
I mean, that sounds a little odd that the state has not put out a single sheet saying that this is the code, this is the decision tree, use it, rather than just put all beautiful language in English that half the people can understand.
This is the technical guidance. It's not one day.
I mean,
That's why you heard the bird thing.
one of my dreams is to actually have a code official academy in the state of Massachusetts, just like we have a police academy and a fire academy. We should train building inspectors to know really what's in all this stuff, because we're really giving them a terribly demanding job to go out there and know all this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
Our building inspector showed me a check sheet for the new stretch code. You know, it's got all the factors. So I think there is something like that.
okay, so just quickly on the HERS rating, you review the building plans on the computer, you get an initial HERS score. During the process of the house being built, the HERS rater comes out and verifies that the insulation is done properly. They test the ducts. They do a blower door test. Are you familiar with the blower doors? Yeah. So that basically depressurizes the house and finds out where all the leaks are. When you get down to the HERS ratings of 42, you see this big hole? That house, the hole for 42 is about this big. It's pretty amazing how tight that is. All right, so that's basically a HERS score. The passive house goes even farther than that. It goes to a leakage of 0.6 ACH 50. That's air changes at 50 pascals. Standard houses are around, most of the code is around 3 air changes at 50, so that 0.6 is incredibly tight. They're primarily heated by solar and internal gains. I had an architect once tell me that if he had 6 people over for dinner, that was all the energy he needed to heat his house. If he could get 2 of them into a fight, he could send 3 of them home. But people generate a lot of heat. Orientation and shading, so you keep the heat coming in, going where you want it to be. So the Passive House Institute, they have a very comprehensive manual, and you need that Passive House verifier to get it done. One of the other requirements in the ventilation, in the code now is heat recovery ventilation. For when you get houses that tight, you need to basically ventilate them properly, and the code requires heat recovery ventilation or energy recovery ventilation. And so the outgoing air stream exchanges some of the heat during the winter with the incoming air stream, or the heat and moisture if you're going with energy recovery.
What is the difference between a heat recovery ventilation and energy recovery?
The difference is that, okay. Is that what this is?
Yeah, no, that wasn't.
Okay. The difference between a heat recovery ventilator and an energy recovery ventilator is that a heat recovery ventilator exchanges the warmth from the warmer airstream with the cooler airstream. An energy or enthalpy recovery ventilator exchanges not only the heat, but also the moisture from the wetter stream to the drier stream. So if you're in an air conditioning climate and it's hot and humid outside, basically the air conditioned house, it dries out some of the air coming into the house. I recommend people to use a heat recovery ventilator in this climate, primarily because these tight houses, you want to get rid of all the moisture in the bathrooms and you don't want it coming back in. The advantage of the,
See a lot of makeup air get up to the wind when you get too tight.
the code requires you to put this in now,
Yeah. Is
right?
that considered makeup air?
There's a difference between makeup air and ventilation air, right? Makeup air, if you put in a 400 CFM range hood, you got to provide makeup air in order to get that to move 400 CFM.
See it.
Yeah. So all those things work together but as far as ventilation goes, you need the heat or energy recovery ventilators. And one of the guys at the meeting last night in Rochester told me that it costs $20,000 for one of these things. And, you know, it doesn't. I mean, it's more expensive than a $20 bathroom fan, but, you know, it doesn't cost $20,000.
This is Rochester, New York.
Rochester, Mass. And there are some new ones of these things that actually include heating and cooling coils right in the ventilation system. So you can use this for heating, cooling, and ventilating all with one product. The technology is changing as fast as I can speak, and I don't speak fast. Sorry.
You know, these have a fan inside, they're electric powered.
They are electrically powered.
What happens if you lose power then? You have to, window.
Yeah, if you lose power, you got more problems than just your ventilation system.
Right.
I mean, the beauty of ventilation is you could open your window, you know. And one of the other things that the code is requiring is EV readiness, electric vehicle readiness. There's a difference between EV capable and EV ready and EV installed. Basically, you have to be able to provide for somebody to park an electric vehicle in their driveway. At least you have to have the power available to put it in. Okay, this is dangerous. But some of the numbers that have been generated to basically talk about the difference between a HERS 52 house and a HERS 42 house. A single family, this is, please take this with a grain of salt. There are so many variables and assumptions here that it is almost impossible to pin it down, but it should give you an idea of what's going on. So the point here is that if you have a 2,100 square foot house and you're staying with fossil fuel heat, it's going to cost about $14,000 extra to the builder to do that, to go to HERS 42. But the builder gets back about $6,100 or $6,200 in tax incentives. So with the extra cost of the builder is about $7,900. Now this is staying with fossil fuel heat, like gas heat, because there's additional cost for more efficient fossil fuel furnace, additional cost for an efficient AC system, all of those things down at the bottom. But
The $7,900 is based on the additional cost that you're listed in the file.
right,
Right, okay.
if you switch from fossil fuel to an electric heat pump, it's going to reduce the construction costs by about $11,500. And you get $17,000 in rebates. And so the builder is going to get back about $28,500. And the homeowner is going to save about $1,000 a year. Now, this is moving from fossil fuel to electric. Now you can go through, the thing is, you really have to go through all of this stuff down at the bottom to understand how they got here. But it's pretty amazing. So does that make, yes,
I don't understand why you'd save on windows.
you can actually, because of the changes in her score, you can trade off the U value of the windows, U value being the measurement of the heat loss through the glass. So you can move, I forget exactly what the number is, but you can actually go to a slightly different, lower cost window. It's pretty extraordinary, but it's a trade-off, you know.
Aren't you really aiming at 45 instead of 42 for the electric?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about what happens on the specialized code if you go all the way. If you go to the specialized code, you're looking at the HERS 42 number.
I thought it was still 45.
I don't know if I can go back. Can I go back? Oops, no.
In the up arrow button, yeah.
HERS
All
42.
45.
Well, that's a really good question, Bert.
Maybe that's where your savings come from.
That should be
42 to 45.
right. I don't think it's that's quite it, but I will look that up.
When you're doing your trade-offs, is there anything at the model that you can start to see? 1.2827.
Yeah, well, that's what the HERS rater can do. I mean, as a HERS rater, you know, I could advise my clients as to what kind of insulation to use. I had a builder last night tell me that his HERS rater said that he was doing a gut rehab and he felt that he had to foam all the walls in the house in order to get to the HERS rating. Well, I mean, they were making wrong assumptions there to begin with, but there are alternatives to foaming the walls. Foam insulation is expensive. If you wrap the outside of the building with like 2 inches of foam board, then you're insulating all the studs as well as all the cavities. So there are different ways to approach this, but you need to have a rater or a verifier who knows what to do. And that goes particularly for town buildings, because there's a lot of things in the new specialized code about thermal bypasses. And you need to deal with all of those. All right, and then one of the other questions that came up was, all right, we're going to go all electric. We're going to do all these heat pumps. We're going to do all these electric vehicles. Can the grid handle that? So what we're looking at is that the increasing load of electric vehicles is expected to account for about 6,000 gigawatt hours of grid demand additional, and 3,000 gigawatts that year in heat pumps. So the total increase is about 9,000 gigawatt hours. But that will be offset forecast. Now, of course, this is all forecast stuff. Energy efficiency, save about 12.8. Photovoltaics behind the meter. I'm putting solar panels all over my roof. I'm in a historical district and my historical society let me do it. I'm putting solar panels all over my roof to offset my new heat pumps that I'm putting in. And you add all that up, you got 24,192 plus of gigawatt hours offsetting an increased load of about 9. So the grid can certainly handle it.
So this is assuming electric vehicles are personal electric vehicles, replace all things getting replaced by personal electric, not commercial trucks. That's for transportation, as it states here in terms of. Or is it just based on old energy use?
Good question. I don't know, Frederick.
Okay, so the answer is to refer to the given link for further.
Right, exactly. So if you go to that ISO link down there, it has an amazing amount of information about all of this stuff.
Okay.
Okay. And another question that comes up is, can heat pumps pack the load when it gets to be really cold outside? Well, this is the heat pump I'm putting in my house. It has a potential output of about 60,000 BTUs. And there's a whole lot of information on the spec sheet. And this is what I'm talking about going to a Hersbrader or a contractor that knows what they're doing. They know what all that information means. You shouldn't have to understand it, but you should be able to trust your Hersbrader or your HVAC. So this one, these heat pumps are tested at 45 degrees, 17 degrees, and 5 degrees. The design temperature in my neighborhood is around 6 degrees Fahrenheit. So 99% of the time, the temperature never falls below 6 degrees. So when I design a heating system for a house, I design it to be running all the time when the temperature gets down to 6 degrees. Because the rest of the time above that, it's always somewhat less efficient because it's not running all the time. Of course, it's better when you go with heat pumps. With fossil fuel systems, they're actually heating the chimney, cooling the chimney, it goes on and off. So this one is sized at 60,000 BTUs for my house. And at 17 degrees, its output is 65,000 BTUs. And at 5 degrees, it's 57,000 BTUs. So when the temperature outside drops to 5 degrees, that heat pump's going to be able to heat my house at about maybe 71 degrees instead of 72. I might have to put a sweater on, but they can certainly handle the load. The heat pump technology has improved fantastically.
Is the design temperature chosen by an installer, or is it by a table that's recommended on the ASHRAE table, or how is it chosen?
Yes. Is the design temperature chosen by the HVAC contractor or by ASHRAE? ASHRAE is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. But actually, the tables are in a different place. They're in ACA, the American Air Conditioning Contractors of America. In the manual J calculations, which is the load calculation for the house, those numbers are in there, and that's where the HVAC guy should find their numbers.
There is generally a concern around temperatures falling below 0 on very cold days, but sometimes temperatures can reach -10 degrees Fahrenheit, whether it's with or without wind chill. Don't keep that up at bay. Is that something as a sensitivity analysis that the HVAC person can do with analysis and help as a discussion to be had with people?
I'm part of a group called the Advanced Heat Pump Coalition. It is basically a coalition of heat pump manufacturers from around the world. And they are working with all of the temperature issues, obviously. So the heat pumps are running fine down to -20. I'm not sure. I taught school on the coast of Labrador, where the temperature got down over 100 degrees, negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't think I'd want a heat pump in that condition. I mean, you're asking a lot. And I have a great wood stove for a backup, so I can kick up the heat. But it was interesting with the HVAC contractor who came into our house to put our new heat pump system in. One of his first questions was, you know, this may not be 72 degrees at, you know, when it's really cold. And I disagree with him, but we'll see.
Manual J, is that primary construction, those are favorable.
ACCA has a whole series of manuals. Manual J, Manual S, Manual T. There's a whole series of the manuals that you can use to design the heating system in the house. So Manual J, if you're putting in a new heating system in the house, then I would use Manual J because it actually gives you the size of how much heat or cool should be delivered to each room. Is that what you're asking?
Say if you're a new home, you know your bird rating, you know your lost air. If you're rated with an old house, you got some of the heat going on. Would be more hard to calculate. Space and everything.
It is a bit harder. I mean, I did it for my house to size this system that they're putting in. Interesting. The first contractor I had come into the house, he didn't have a clipboard, he didn't have a pencil, he didn't have a tape measure. And I gave him my printout of my Manual J, which is about 35 pages. And he said, we never use that. We never use that. You size a system with your thumb. You stand across the street and you hold your thumb over the house. And depending on how much of the house your thumb covers tells you how many tons of cooling you need for the house. That's actually in a manual.
So basically, it's the Manual J, like, does an HVAC contractor have to, like, kind of fill out an equation for the Manual J and submit that as permit? And
Yes.
then has to make sure that it's mapped out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what he should do. Yep. That's part of the HERS rating.
Otherwise, the HERS rater will not be.
Right.
HERS rating.
That's right. Sir,
Keep hearing about HERS ratings. Where are they coming?
where are HERS ratings coming from?
This is a job that full-time job. Our employees doing that.
Yeah,
Today we have them.
yeah,
Full-time job.
yeah.
How do you find them?
There he is.
I'm a retired HERS rater. I'd be happy to direct you to some great ones. There's some really good ones. There's some guys up here on the North Shore that are excellent and really know what they're doing.
Homeowners should be tasked with that. If they're gonna do a major renovation or build a new house, the town's building inspector, I would hope, would get the HERS grader involved.
Not for an old home.
The HERS rater, the town building inspector is not allowed to recommend HERS raters. I mean, it's a conflict of interest.
There's so much incentive around it anyway, that it's not really much of a sure.
So what's the reason for you to pay them? Or to get a rebate, you must.
Yeah, but you're getting a rebate.
But does the contractor call in the HERS rater? Yes,
Like, yeah,
I'm asking.
okay, so if I.
it's like the second guy to build a call after he gets his plans.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Question. If you are going to be replacing your heating system with a heat pump, do you recommend at the very minimum, obviously you have to manage J complication to make sure the sizing appropriate. But at the same time, would you say just before the installation of lower load test is also a good practice?
So your question, if I understand it, is if you're thinking of converting your existing house from your gas-fired furnace or your oil-fired furnace and going to a heat pump system. I think, well, first of all, it really should be, depending on how you do it. If you were thinking of putting a mini split in one room, that's pretty much a no-brainer. That you can just do a quick floor calculation and do it. I mean, there's better ways to do it. And I'm got all these new things flocking around in my head about humidity and other things. But if you're doing anything extensive like our house has, it was a 17-room inn when I got it back in the 70s. And the system, I have a whole ducted system in the top floor and then individual mini splits in the first floor. And all of that required doing the manual J to make sure it all worked right. But I think it really, again, it needs to be carefully studied. I wouldn't go out and just bang in a system like ours without doing more deep study on it. Partially because of the fact that the way walls were constructed in the older houses, there's a vapor barrier, or there's some point in that wall structure that is the first condensing surface for moisture. And so you don't want the walls to rot out because you've just put air conditioning in that house. So you need to think about all of those elements. You can't get a HERS rating on an existing house. You can, but it's different. I mean, I did a HERS rating on my own house, obviously, but technically this is all for new. This is for the specialized code going for commercial or multifamily. Passive house is what's required for the multifamily units. Again, passive house, it requires a passive house verifier, which you really need to get involved right from the get-go. I have not wrapped my head around all of the issues of the commercial code for the specialized code. I was given this assignment about a month ago. So there's just too many permutations and combinations involved there. It's all there. It's in the code and you can dig into it and ask those questions. But I think it needs to be done right from the get-go. So as far as the timeline for the specialized code, as you can see, here it says 4 cities adopt, and you say there's 8 now.
8 have voted in, so their start date is January 1.
Right. Did somebody say TED? Teddy? Yeah, Teddy is another way of, besides the HERS rating and the specialized, the passive house approach. Teddy is another way of evaluating all the energy consumption in the building, and it's more directed at commercial buildings. But it's just a summary of all the energy that's being generated and used in that building. So January 1, 2024, those folks will go into the specialized code. But on July 1st, 2024, the stretch code will go to those things anyway. So if you don't opt into the specialized code and you stay with the stretch code, you'll be there on July 1st, 2024 anyway.
For multifamily.
For all of these things, for all to do with the specialized code.
So
No?
Not sure that's. Single family or just multi-family?
I think it will be true for both single family and multifamily and commercial. I will look that up and get back to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. me just see. Think. Oops. Sorry. I'm going all the way back. Yes, I didn't get the additions in here. So let's see, additions.
So I have a question. Supposing I wanted to build this 2,100 square foot house, and I've got a set of plans. In this environment, what is the next step? Do I have to find a HERS person to look at the plans, and he will, what happens after he looks at this?
So the HERS rater looks at the plans, plugs all that information into one of the pieces of software that HERS raters can use. And models a house. And he'll,
Does he create like a building list of materials? Yeah. For me, or what?
well, you will have a building list of materials when you have your plans, but he will advise you if you're thinking of putting fiberglass insulation and 2x4 walls, he'll probably say, you know, you're not going to get there. And so he'll advise you on what you can do to alternatives to go beyond that.
So, you know, we're used to thinking about 6-inch walls right now. From what I can tell, if this is wrong, they're still talking about 6-inch walls, you know, for some of these new higher energy ratings. So what do we do to the walls that's different, you know, to get to HERS 42 or whatever, even lower, that we are doing right now?
Well, interesting question. I don't know how this works, quite frankly, but I just had the insulation ripped out of the ceiling of like basement ceiling. And it was put in probably 2001, 2002. And the mice had a field day. And so it was a mess. And so we pulled all that insulation out. It was about R13. The new insulation takes up the same cavity, and it's R30.
Really? It's not fiberglass.
It's fiberglass.
It's that brown stuff.
No, it's not. It's just regular pink fiberglass. I think, well, maybe yellow. But the technologies have, I mean, glass itself is a great conductor of heat. It's those air cavities in between all that. And I don't know how they magically made insulation the same thickness with a higher R value.
Additions and renovations.
Okay.
For traffic.
I will do that right. Just how much time have we got?
20 minutes.
Yeah, we probably have to start getting out in 20 minutes.
20 minutes max, so I would suggest maybe we can go to additions.
Okay.
But
All right. So the real trick with renovation, with additions, you got to separate additions and alterations. There are two different categories in the code. If I had a 800 square foot house and I did a gut rehab on it, ripped out all the walls, stripped it down. Wait, that's an alteration. I'm sorry. And I doubled the size of it. I added 800 square feet, which is the same condition floor area as what was in the existing house. I would have to do a HERS rating on the whole house.
so if you have let's change the equation. I'm going to ask you a real question.
These
I
are
have a
fake
4,000
questions.
I have 4,000 square foot home.
Okay,
I do a 1,200 square foot renovation in the house,
okay,
bedrooms or living room, kitchens. As such, I have gutted it to the studs.
gutted it to the studs.
1,200 square foot on a 4,000 square foot addition space. And my town is specialized stretch code.
Okay. But let me give you one that I know for sure and can answer on that.
This is the question.
So if I had a 4,000 square foot house and I wanted to convert the attic, a 1,200 square foot attic into a bedroom. Okay,
That's an addition.
that is an alteration.
That's an alteration.
That's an alteration, and therefore I wouldn't, because of the fact that it was not more than 50% of the conditioned floor, because of the fact that it was the 1,200 square foot alteration of the attic space, if I didn't add skylights or dormer windows, I just altered the use of the space, then I would not need to do a HERS rating on the whole house.
Okay. an
Okay.
alteration on-
If I did added skylights, then it becomes not a change of use. You're actually modifying the whole thing, then you would have to do a HERS rating on the whole house. But if you did 900 square feet, you wouldn't, because it's less than 1,000 square feet.
Okay, a 900 square foot with skylights, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
And.
Because it's less than 1,000 square
less
feet.
than 1,000 square foot. Now, if I did not change anything to the alteration to the attic, but I stuck with renovating the kitchens, the living room. And I added 1,200 square foot renovation. No changes to the walls or anything, but strip down to the studs. Do I have to now comply with all the provisions of these specialized stretch?
You still don't have to get a HERS rating on the whole house when you do that. You still have to comply with the building codes.
The solar panels. And
No. Now, if you're just, this is one of the problems is you have to really see this on paper and put it out there. The renovations and additions components of this thing are really hard to understand. I mean, I contacted the guy that wrote this code last night of this meeting in Rochester, and I said, Ian, this is what's going on here. How do I do this? And that was when he explained to me that if it was just a change of use of that attic space, you wouldn't need the HERS rating on the whole.
change of use not required. That is, no modifications to the profile or the exteriors as it is, that's change of use. The attic got changed. of
Right.
use. But if you add a skylight, it's 1,200, which is higher than the 1,000.
Right.
And your whole house would have to have a HERS rating.
Correct.
But would it also have to comply with the gas, non-gas, like electric readiness?
Yes,
For the whole house.
for the whole house. I mean, the codes are already telling you that you have to do the solar, EV ready and the solar.
So if I make
Solar
an
ready.
attic change. Even in the stretch code, I have to be ready.
Is there a dollar amount associated with any of this?
No.
$100.
Nope, it's just square feet.
So. The stretch code requires me to go EV if I touch 1,000 square foot.
Over 1,000 square feet.
Over 1,000.
You have to be EV ready. I mean, the code requires, not the stretch code, the regular base code.
Base code requires EV readiness on a renovation that's 1,000 square foot plus.
If you pulled your permit in 2022, no. Because there was,
The adoption of a set standard or now 23, we are in stretch code adoption mode, we already are adopting.
Right.
stretch code. Does that require the base code EV readiness? And EV readiness, if I do 1,000 square foot renovation of my kitchen and my, get the attic for one, I'm doing a kitchen and a living room adjustment.
If you were to renovate your kitchen, so you're stripping it down, anything you touch in the walls and things, you have to do by code. It's not, I mean, that's true anyway, right? So if you rip out the walls, you still have to bring those walls back up to code.
Code, and that code would require. That's okay to bring it to have a natural gas cooking stove is there, that will live there. It will trigger a requirement that my garage has to be EV ready automatically,
Your garage.
because that my car has to be EV ready, I'm not gonna plug my EV into my kitchen. So it triggers a requirement in my garage or someplace where I can charge my car, or I have to have an EV ready phone. Right? Even though I touch the kitchen, it automatically.
Well, that's a question I cannot answer for you, Frederick. I would like, I don't want to give you an answer that's not absolutely correct. And
That's the answer we need.
I don't have that. Shantae, would you write that down? And I will get him.
That's the answer.
So let me get this.
We've answered the questions asked of us very clearly.
Let,
If I make 1,000 square foot plus change in the whole kitchen, living room, whatever it be associated. What does it trigger? Does it require that I have to go get solar first? And EV readiness in my garage? It doesn't matter if you don't have a garage, you still have to provide. You have to provide some.
For EVs, there was one that was.
That's the question. We better
Okay.
than the building board inspector, the better than the UER.
signs up. Okay, we've got your question written down, Frederick, and I will get you an
Better get
answer.
that answer in writing from somebody. Where you go.
Okay, now your question?
I seem to remember there were 3 categories when you talked about EVs. Wasn't that EV ready in the middle, and then there was a third one that was, you had to have a connection?
Yes,
So
right.
maybe EV ready is just making sure you have enough electricity in your service to cover.
That's,
Connected.
yeah. So EV ready means you have a 240 volt grounded AC receptacle out there. So it has this thing right there that you can plug into.
Okay.
To the point is I should be able to drive it the next day. Be able to plug in right there, that's EV ready. EV capable just says that the panel has to be there.
Right.
With enough space, I don't have to have it upgraded.
Right.
As it doesn't have to be wired for it.
Okay.
I appreciate that there's a million and one what ifs and what abouts and things like that. We could go on until midnight. The question I have for you is, as a town meeting rep, the question before town meeting is to whether or not to replace one energy standard with the other energy standard. Besides being seen as leaders in the state for energy conservation, why would we want to make that change?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I asked, do you get more money if you're doing that? And the answer is not at this time. So it's really just that you want to be at the forefront.
So besides patting ourselves on the back, we would add complexity to our regulatory code within the town structure, within the building department permits and the contractors and builders, things like that. But there's what's in it for us.
Yeah,
I think the answer there would be that.
The town committed 2 years ago, net zero, like. The town, I don't know if you were. we're gonna do it. Yeah, no, I told her, that's the reason. That's, I think that's the reason. Not really because we're getting grant, you know, like, right now.
I think this is one of the questions we'll have to answer at town meeting in a couple of weeks. What's in it for us, besides feeling good about ourselves?
I don't think so. I think it's just a game, right?
It's doing what's right for, I mean, no, we should, if we're not gonna do the 2050 goal, why don't we get rid of it?
I think the question is,
If we're gonna keep this, we should do things,
but I think the answer there, the way I would look at it. Is that this is one of the first steps to make sure that new construction can get electrified. And move this direction. The big portion of this is about the additions. The renovation, significant renovation. That's the question we are struggling with, in essence, that UER has not given clarity on. It's a no-brainer in the general sense, as you pointed out with construction. If there was a way to slice this down, you could have sliced it. If there is a way even for building inspector to give waivers on the additions and renovations. As a town rep, I would say, you know what, if the homeowner is making a good effort about making the appropriate installation, that they are able to add solar, but they don't want to get rid of their gas stove or anything like that. I perfectly am fine writing a waiver. You know, as a good citizen of the town, I would accept that person saying you've done more than enough of the list there. I certainly understand that. That's why I'm asking these tough questions is who is responsible for writing this out, that UER has put this out, has put it out in a confusing manner, essentially. And we have no other vehicle right now to help with the policy. So this is, you're right. It adds regulatory complexity because UOER did a fantastic job of it. And no answers are coming forward from UOER. I mean, ideally speaking, I would want UOER standing in that code and answering all questions and all scenarios right then and there. Because they wrote the code, they know the 500 pages, they the map and have right then and there. It shouldn't be that out of town.
I think it's really about the health of the plan. If that's what you.
I mean, that is a big one, right? That is a big goal, to the gentleman's point. Other than adding ourselves and making the right stuff, that is a good move to do. I'm not saying it's not a good move, but we have to understand that there are concerns from people that say, hey, this is why I asked the question. I touched the kitchen, and suddenly you now have a garage requirement. Right?
Unless it's clear, there's no point pushing it on the fire. Everybody's doing.
Right, so I think that's the priority that we are seeking, and I thought it was a.
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing shortly at 8:30.
So
If you have any items to put out or anything to print, after you can, please do so now. And note that all sitting rooms are closed and computers shut down automatically at 8:25. Thank you.
I want to say that the stretch code already does the additions. It's not the specialized code.
So the problem here.
So you're electing into the specialized codes or not.
So the problem is not that. The problem
It's-
is
that's
I
not-
don't have a definitive guide right now.
Right.
That walks me through, and if I don't have it, I don't have any legal authority. I feel like subpoena. If you were around the road and said, stand in front and answer the town meeting questions. I mean, don't get me, but that's just a sentiment, I'm not saying that I have a legal authority to do that. But the point is, if I have to be better at explaining to town meeting than the building commissioner or the building inspector is, it's done deal.
Yeah, fair
So
enough.
it seems to be that the code has been written to placate somebody's need, saying that if you can figure it out, guys, go ahead and adopt it. But other than that, I'm not going to do that. So it may have been an administrative thing or a specific administration, but you don't want to give this as an example for anybody.
What if the other towns that have adopted it, should be they've got point of fire.
I mean, they have done it probably because they already wanted it for the sake of being ahead of the curve, and they see value in general for their large amount of buildings. new buildings, some of the towns that have adopted, have a large number of new buildings coming up potentially. And they see the value in picking up on the green technology, and doing it, because it's easier for them to build out. Right? Our question as a suburban community is about renovations and upgrades that people do, because people are trying to consolidate family or grow or think about that. The right thing is obviously to do the right thing. If you are going to invest in 1,000 square foot renovation, you be a builder. What's the cost of a per square foot renovation? You don't have to give obviously all the materials back, but roughly about $150 per square foot minimum. You would not work. But somewhere there, exactly. So if you're doing 1,000 square foot of renovation, that's $300,000, $200,000, the renovation dollars, whatever. Then when you put something that's not going to give you a problem, the fact that get rid of your tax or not. At that point, I say, I don't do it.
What's that to go into a home and change the windows? We still staying with the regular Energy Star windows the way they are now. This new stretch goal is not affecting that, right?
The new version of the stretch code that happened on January 1st. I don't know that there were any changes to the required U value or the solar heat gain coefficient of the windows. I think it seemed like, they're very small changes in there, but that's in the code. I mean, that's stuff you need to understand as a builder, what to use for windows. That's not to do with the specialized code. It's just the building code.
Yeah, right, so the regular windows that we're using now, I think it just got bumped up a little bit, but
Yeah,
this specialized code isn't
no,
making us do anything more than that now. We
No.
just have to stay with that.
sometimes in some of the commercial things, you may need to go to triple glazed. The technology of triple glazed windows has improved dramatically too. But again, the commercial stuff is very complicated.
And I was just asking about residential.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think you should be okay. You just have to pay attention to everything. I mean, your air sealing, your caulking, everything. has to
No,
be-
absolutely, you go in there, you want to do the job correct, and you want to make
Right.
it as best as you can. You want happy people, you don't want.
Yes,
So getting back to my question, if I went and got my list of stuff from my HERS rater, you would say that for this particular build-up, need a window that is U.2 or something like that, and I could look up and get that window, right?
yeah,
But I can trade,
yeah,
if I can say, if I say I don't want, I want a less expensive window, like a 0.25 or something, then he can make something else
right.
that makes up for the, and the HERS number comes out the same.
That's right. They make all those changes and
So
trade to them.
you work with HERS people in your building?
Yeah, I do residential work. I mean, I've built houses, and that's the first guy you call. Once you get your blueprint, you call the HERS guy.
So you work with those guys before?
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, that's not I don't do that for a living, but you want to change the windows in your house, that's what I do, or siding and decks and stuff like that. I'm just a residential guy. And, I'm just curious, I know the window, the U numbers.
I'm sorry that I'm not in Finlayson that wrote the code.
As much as you are
It seems like it's really.
unaware or you don't have enough of the background. The volume-
I didn't write the code. Yeah,
I agree. I'm saying that whoever wrote it should have given town the ability. to
Absolutely.
do it. And so what may be required is we need to, I don't know if you're allowed to, but you should reach out to the person who wrote the code and say, here's a town that's struggling to answer this question.
absolutely. I will.
They literally need you to be there to answer the questions.
I will get on his case tomorrow morning.
Because we are going to get, otherwise what's going to happen is this is going to get defeated. Because the answers are not coming, or more study will be required, and nobody will trust a future update.
Right. Well, bear in mind that with the stretch code, The additions are there. It's not the specialized code.
Understood. The question is, we have to clarify that very clearly, that the stretch code already covers any additions and renovations to bring it up to code. The question is, because of the specialized codes activation.
Okay,
The specialized code is only limited to new construction. That's a clean cut. That's okay, because we already bought it for scratch.
okay.